And welcome. Hi, welcome to It's So Friday. I'm Elizabeth, and we're here at Robert Kaufman making this live video today here on Friday. There's a lot of laughing happening. I don't know. Anyway, we're here today because we have such a good circle of friends here in Robert Kaufman, and we thought you all needed a circle of friends, and so we thought that we would make the Circle of Friends quilt. Just look at that. You can find this pattern on Robert Kaufman's website, so just follow the link up in our post. You can also find the fabric and the kits for this project at the retailers linked in our post above, so make sure you check that out because you're not going to want to miss this. You can make a circle of friends for all your circle of friends, and you can distribute it far and wide around the world, and you're going to feel so good when you do. This is such a fun, friendly quilt. You can see it here. And the fabric that we're using is designed by Heidi Kenney, and it's called Friendly Faces. And we call this Friendly Faces because this fabric is covered in friendly faces. They are all just so happy to see you. You are going to be so happy when you get this fabric in your stash because it is just delightful. Everyone is smiling, everyone is happy. Almost everyone is smiling, almost everyone is happy, but for the most part, I mean, it's, you know, there's always one who's like a little sad, like that tooth that just heard he has a cavity. I don't know, it's a hard day. Anyway, let's jump right into Circle of Friends. Make sure you download the pattern. You'll know you have the right pattern because it looks like this. It's very exciting. Okay, some of the neat things that we're going to talk about and need today are our panel of fabric. I'm using a charm square that has 85 different Kona colors in it. So it's a really exciting charm pack and great for this project because you have 85 different options and you only need like 62 for this quilt. So you can really kind of pick which ones you like more than others. And we're using this beautiful Essex for our background. So literally 3 pieces and that's it. And you can make this whole quilt your very own. So let's jump right in. If you open this up, it kind of looks like this, because this is the same. I just have played with this one a little bit. All right. When the first thing you're going to want to do is read the directions all the way through. I read the directions all the way through. I read them more than once. I was sure they were wrong because I didn't read them the first time. Then I reread them and they were actually right. So read the directions. And take the time to carefully cut out all of your background fabrics like it calls for all at once. So you're going to be spending just a little bit of time cutting out these pieces, but it's going to make your life so much easier once you get them all cut out. Okay, once you have those cut out, I'm just being messy, I'm sorry. Let me fix that. Okay, once you have your background pieces all cut out, you can set your fabric aside and then move on to your panel. So the fun thing about this panel, oh, you'll need your rotary cutter next. The fun thing about this panel is that it runs like continuous yardage. So if you decide that you want like 300 panels because you love it so much, you could just have like a really, really long piece of fabric. And that, you know, I only have like a yard here, so it's not the same as if you had like 300 yards. But there's no start and stop. So to see where your panel kind of begins and ends, you can look for one motif and then just follow it down until you see that motif again right here. And that would be the next part of your panel. But if you don't want to cut it all up, what I like to do as a fussy cutter is I just kind of like to cut what I need and then leave it kind of attached so your fabric ends up looking like this. But what I do is I lay my fabric out and let me see. You'll notice on fabric that has a strong line that sometimes, maybe we should zoom in for this one. Let's zoom in and I'll show you what I'm talking about. On a fabric that has a straight line, you'll see sometimes that the line seems to be going pretty straight and then kind of dips down a little bit. That's totally normal and it happens on this kind of a panel. But what you don't want is to just use a ruler and just cut a straight line. What might line up straight here isn't lining up straight over here. So see, if you were to line it up with that line, you could see it would be off. And so instead of using a ruler to cut just a straight line first, I like to take my rotary cutter, this is, and closed, but I just kind of trace on the line and then I would do doop, 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 and then do the same thing, and then square up those pieces later. So let's go back to the main screen so I can do some cutting. Welcome back. Okay, so you'll notice that this quilt has 8 distinct rings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in 8 different colors. And this panel also has a whole bunch of different colors. You only need 8 motifs out of each color that you're going to feature. And so if you don't want to just cut out everything, you could literally go, I like this one, I don't like this one, so you're going to cut your 8 different motifs. So for starters, I'm just going to show you maybe on this edge where the line was a little kooky. I'm just going to trace on the lines to cut out my little pieces. And if it's not totally exact, that's okay. We're going to square up. Squaring up is the best thing that's ever happened to quilters. It makes it easy to be precise and look really cool. Okay, so I have these pieces. I'm just going to set my panel aside now. Okay, now I have a piece, and it's a little wonky, but all you have to do is you need 2 3/4 inch squares for your centers. So you're going to take a ruler, and I'm using this Quilter Select ruler because it has a grippy side, so it doesn't slip around. But if I line this up, yes, if I line this up, you'll see there's enough room to square up to 2 3/4 inches, kind of cut off all the kooky parts of it. So you can just go ahead and do that. So take your time with your panel, decide which motifs you want to feature, and then go ahead and square them up. Just this whole quilt is kind of an exercise in patience. Like, it's not a rush project. It's something you want to take your time on, and these little bits, yeah, go in the trash, and then you have a lovely motif, perfectly square. It's wonderful. Okay, now you're going to repeat that process for each, or 8 times for each of the colors. So for blue, you'll want 8, for green, you'll want 8, for yellow, you'll want 8, for orange, you'll want 8, all the way around the color wheel. I can just keep saying it, but I'm not going to. Okay. The next part about this that's super important is to read the directions, because you'll see that there's like an assembly diagram. You do need to follow that. I kind of thought maybe you didn't need to follow that. You do need to follow that. But you'll notice that each block has a center motif. Well, I'll just show you here because each block has a center motif and has 4 half-square triangles around it. And so to make those half-square triangles, you can make half-square triangles so many different ways, but there's a really great charm-friendly way to do it. And I'm going to show you that up close. Let me just move this. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. You have your charm squares that you've cut out, and you have your charm squares from your pack. You are going to pair a charm square from the pack with one of your self-cut charm squares. And you'll see that the ones from the pack have that pinked edge around it. We talked about how with the pre-cut they have that pinked edge last week, and you could trim it off, but you don't need to in this case. So lay your squares so that they are as centered as possible with that 5-inch square of background that you've cut. And they should look kind of like this. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your sewing machine, and using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you are going to sew 1/4 inch around all the ways. And when I sew, I like to leave my needle down at a corner. So if I'm sewing like this, I'll stop with my needle down here and I'll pivot and then sew down here, then stop and pivot and sew. So let's take this over to the sewing machine and let's get sewing. Okay, here we go. Now with this, I'm going to start a little bit off the edge. Now don't worry if you end up going like a little bit over and you need to step back at your corner, or if you aren't really comfortable pivoting, you could sew the entire straight line, then turn, or go off the edge, then start again. It's okay. So I'm just gonna sew, and turn, pivot, sew, and pivot. So. Ooh, I overshot that, so I'm going to step back, turn and pivot. Okay. So now let's look at this up close, and I'll show you what we're dealing with here. We're going to look at this up close, and I'm going to show you what we're dealing with here. Okay. Sorry, my camera lady was not paying attention. Okay, I'm going to use a rotating cutting mat. And now this is pretty cool. It has a base with ball bearings here, and this part turns. Then there's this cutting mat, and it has a grip on the back, so it just stays on that base really nicely. When you're at this stage, I think this is really helpful because once you make your first cut, you don't want to manhandle it a whole bunch because that isn't great for the stretch of your fabric. So what you're going to do is line up your ruler, corner of the background piece that you cut, not the charm, and you'll see it's pretty good. It maybe shifted a little bit, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm lining up my ruler corner to corner, and I'm going to make my first slice. Now, without touching anything, I'm going to very carefully lift my ruler and make sure it goes back together. And then I'm going to rotate my mat so I don't have to touch the fabric again. I'll lay this back down and cut. Now, you can totally achieve this without a rotating cutting mat, but it does make your life just a little bit easier. So now you have 4 half square triangles, and we're going to take those over to our ironing board and we're going to press. Now, just a note, if you're doing this at home and you're making this quilt, you are going to repeat this process like 62 times. So it's a little tedious, but you get better at it the more you go, you get more comfortable with it, and you really get into the rhythm of it. And so pretty quickly you end up with a stack of half square triangles. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind, though, is that the pattern tells you to pick which colors you want to feature ahead of time. And I didn't do that the first time. And because I didn't do that, I didn't really realize how close some of my greens were when I was working with them. And I ended up needing to remake more half square triangles because my colors just looked almost identical when they were finished. And that wasn't really the look I was going for. Okay, now you have 4 half square triangles, and they might be like a little wonky. It's okay. They're also just about 3 inches. They're maybe a little bit big. You actually only need your half square triangles to be 2 3/4 inches for this episode. So we are going to take them back to our rotating cutting mat, and we are going to square them up. Okay, now at least at home when I work on a rotating cutting mat, I tend to keep everything really close to me, and I make my first cut. And what I'm doing here is this ruler has the grip I was saying, so it slides around and doesn't move the piece. So I really like it when I'm squaring up. And I'm looking to match. I found that instead of squaring up like this, I like to line up the seam between the background and the color with the 45-degree line on my ruler. So I'm lining that up very nicely, and I'm going to make my first cut. So at home, normally, I feel like what we end up doing is we work down here, and then we pick this up and we go to rotate it, and now it's all the way up here, which is kind of annoying. So because you don't have so much stress about the bias, you can move it, but yeah. Okay, so I'm lining this up at 2 3/4 inches, so that's 1, 2 3/4. And my seam is looking nice. And we're going to go ahead and cut. And then set this aside and repeat the process. All right.
Elizabeth, people say you look so pretty in front of that quilt. We agree.
And we're just going to keep cutting. When you're cutting, be careful to keep your fingers away from the cut edges because it's not fun to cut your fingers, as we all know. Or if you don't know, just take my word for it. It's not fun. If you cut your finger and you go to the urgent care, they just spend a lot of time asking you if it was a work-related injury. And when that happened, it was a Saturday for me, and I just kept explaining that no, it wasn't a work-related injury. I just spent a lot of time with rotary cutters, and it was bound to happen, and they didn't think it was funny. So that's my story. Okay. All right. Whoops. Okay, so once you've gone ahead and you've cut your half square triangles, let's go back to the main camera. Okay, once you've cut your half square triangles, I like to make little piles, and I should have 8 piles. Okay, you are going to consult the directions. Now, I wanted to work a little bit ahead so I could kind of figure out what the heck I was doing before I just tried to do it on air. It was good that I did. So one of the things that I found super helpful when I was working on this is a portable design wall. And a portable design wall is great for, like, I know most of you probably have a design wall in your house. It probably takes up the largest room in your sewing space, or maybe you hang a flannel sheet on the wall, whatever. This is a much smaller way to do it. It's literally a canvas from a craft store, and I took some scrap batting, stretched it over the canvas, and used a staple gun to just keep it from moving around, so it keeps the fabric nice and taut over this. Yes. And the great thing about this board now is that I can take it anywhere with me. So I was using it at home, and then I knew we needed one at work, so I brought it on in. It fits in my car, and it's great. So if you're going on retreats, great thing to have too. And it's super cheap because it's like the cost of spare batting and the cost of a canvas from the craft store. And so when you're working on it, your fabrics, if you haven't used a design wall before, just cling right to that wall. Okay. You'll notice in the pattern that there is a picture of this yellow block, and it looks very similar to what I've just done here. And you'll see, well, let's take this to the up-close camera and I'll show you up close. Okay, you'll see in the picture that there is a green block, and that is here, and there's like a bright orange block, and that one's here. And so in order to get the effect of the interlocking rings that the quilt has, you pretty much need to make all of your half square triangles first and then separate them into the different piles. Then as you work on one block section, it will say to take this, take this color, so I actually did it out of order, but it'll say, take this and then take this one yellow and put it with your yellows. And this green is up here with the greens. So today we're going to be working on the greens. Let's go back to over here. Okay, so I've laid out all of my things, and I know, let's see, I had them all laid out. Who knows? I know that the next block I'm going to work on is the green section, which is going to be up here. And so this one green piece, I've actually already used one. So I have 3 half square triangles, and I know that no matter where I place it, I need to make sure that motif ends up being at this portion so that it will make the colors look correct. So let's go back to zooming in, and we'll work on laying out this portion of the quilt, because that's the fun part anyway, right? Working on your design wall. Okay. So if you want, you can leave this here while you think about it and follow the picture closely. The directions actually say, look at the picture often, consult the photo to make sure you are doing the thing that it says to do. It says it more eloquently than that, but let's bring over our half square triangles that I've all cut out. And I think I have more than I need. That makes sense, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, perfect. Okay. So if this one is going to be here. I'm looking. I should also have one yellow one that is going to connect right here. And that's not the right yellow. I put it someplace safe. Oh, I had it over here. So I have this one yellow left over from the yellow section, and it's telling me to make sure that I include it in this green section, because that piece is going to go right here. So I'm at right here. I have this this, and now I need to decide what green is going next. So before I really get into positioning, I did this layout thing the other day where I was like looking at how I wanted the greens to go in a circle. So if I like it like, let's see, what do you think? Maybe, I mean, this is totally personal preference too. You do not have to make your greens go any specific way. And that's the beauty of this, is that if you decided you just wanted to do all one color, you could do that too. But say I like this layout. Now I will consult my picture, and I will work very hard to make sure that I'm following my picture. It gets a little confusing, but it totally works, I promise. Okay. Not you, you go up here. Right. Oh, and if anyone has any questions while I'm working through this, feel free to ask. And Kyle and Yael, the IT/marketing brains behind the scenes, will ask the questions. Now note that this one here goes off the page into whatever is the next color. So you're going to take one of these and set them aside so that you don't use it in this accidentally. And when you get to the next color, you will use that to join it. All right, we're almost to this.
I have a question.
What's your question, Kyle? Kyle has a question.
Which is your favorite friendly face?
Oh, Kyle asks, which is your favorite friendly face? And that's such a hard question for me because I really like them all. They're really fun to fussy cut. But I did pick some of my favorites to be the featured motifs, the featured fussy cuts. There's that apple, there's the hot dog. Oh, I love the hot dog. There's a dandelion, there's a soda, there's this old lady with pink hair. Maybe she's not old, maybe she's young. There's this toast and toaster buddies. There's this sad banana. I do love that sad banana. There's the spool of thread. These are the ones that I picked out of all the greens to be in my quilt. Just very excited about it, but we'll get to them in a moment. Okay, so we are here. So I just did this blue. We're going to run out of design wall space. Okay. Nope, that's the wrong way. Let's see.
I have a follow-up question.
Kyle has a follow-up question.
Why do you suppose the banana is sad?
I think that she asked why the banana is sad, and I've spent many a day thinking about this. And I think the banana is sad because someone like me picked it out of the grocery store and was like, I can't wait, I'm gonna eat this banana, it's gonna be a delicious snack. And it was like, yes, I'm gonna fulfill my banana destiny and I'm going to be someone's healthy snack for the day. And then that person took it home and left it in the back of the refrigerator for 2 months until it went bad.
Too long to make banana.
And you couldn't even make banana bread out of it because it was so bad. And that is a story that my snacking adventure foods know all too well. Okay, that's why we ran out of space. So see right here where these two go side by side, I had not put them side by side, so this all actually needs to shift down. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the importance of a design wall, because it will tell you when things like that happen, so you don't go totally bonkers trying to figure out what you did like after you've sewed something incorrectly. And you'll notice, no, you won't notice, this part, it goes here, and I need to find where I put my half square triangle, because I put it someplace, of course. Someplace very safe and off camera. Okay, well, since I can't find it, this one's getting out of here. We're going to use this one instead. Okay. It's beautiful. And now that I have the stars laid out, I'm going to decide where I'd like to put my little friends. So I kind of like it when they have a little bit of contrast, like not so much where you can, like I don't like them to look too samey. I kind of like when there's that little bit of a difference between them. It's so much fun. Oh, bad banana, where should you go? Let's see. No, okay, how about that? Okay, so now I have my friends in their spots, and you have these little background squares, and you need to do something with them. And that is where the pattern will tell you all that background piece that you cut out earlier, it'll tell you which piece goes where. And it's important to pay attention to that, because if you don't pay attention, and that's where you'll think that the pattern is wrong. But the pattern's not wrong. It definitely did some math ahead of time, and maybe more math than I did. This one is 4 pieces long. No, 3 pieces long. This one is 4 pieces long, because this one is 3 pieces long. And by 3 pieces, I mean it's going to be the length of these 3. This one goes here, and this one for 3 goes here. 1, 2, 3. And then this long piece is going to go on the side. And you do this all because it helps prevent the need for Y seams later. That doesn't really look like it's the right size for that space, does it? Let's see. That space says 7 1/4 by 18 1/2 and by 25 1/4. So if you're not sure, it's great to take your handy dandy ruler and check, and maybe check with the side that starts with 1 so you can count. So okay, yeah, so this one is the 18 1/2. And so that one does go here, and the 25 1/2 one will go on the top. And I don't think I cut that one because I'm just showing here, and you can always add that one in after. But, okay, once you have everything laid out, and you're like, this is so great, now I can't wait to sew, we're going to take this whole board and go over to our sewing machine. And you're going to clear all your little things out of the way. Bye, guys. Okay, now at this point, I was going to say you don't need to look at the directions anymore, but actually kind of helps to look at the directions. If you can find the page. Okay, now the directions will show you little seams and spaces. So it'll basically tell you, piece this section together first, then this one, attach it to this side, just by way of showing what's connected to each other. So I'm going to leave this here while I start my sewing. And I'm just going to start at the top, and you're sewing with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance and pressing as you go. So let's see how that goes. Okay, and before I press this, I'm just going to sew this to the other side also, because doesn't that sound like more fun? It does. It sounds like more fun. Okay, I'm going to say you can press however you want as long as you're consistent. And then I'm just going to set my pieces back on my design wall. Let me see. Okay. If, as you make your half square triangles, you are consistent in which way you press, in this case I pressed with the background towards the color, then all you have to do when you sew these together, generally the seams will nest. If you're inconsistent, sometimes you'll get nesting seams, sometimes you won't. And depending on how this turns, it's possible they still might not nest, but a lot of them will, and that will make your life easier. Okay. When I'm sewing half square triangles together, I like to press as I go, because then I don't have to kind of pull it. These are on the bias, so if you press too hard, you're going to pull it kind of out of whack, and that's not really what you want. So work through your design wall. And this pattern recommends working on one block at a time, one colored block section at a time. So it makes sense because everyone has a little bit of a different like additional side pieces that it wants you to add on. And so if you try and jump around, it will get confusing. So after you cut all your half square triangles, do this one at a time. Oh no, my needle came unthreaded. One of my favorite things about this sewing machine is not when it comes unthreaded, except for the fact that when it comes unthreaded, I get to use this new fangled, that I just did wrong, needle threader. And it's very fast and fun. It took me like an hour and a half to figure out how to thread it the first time, but then after I figured out how to use the threader, then it was very exciting and fun. Ah, come out, bobbin thread. Don't be shy. Okay. We are going to do this again. Okay. And so as I piece this strip, I'm just being consistent in which direction I'm pressing my seams. So in this case, all the seams are going that way, and the next row, I'll send all the seams this way. It's so exciting. Yes. And as you piece, because you squared everything up, you shouldn't have anything that's too large. It should be just pretty much exact. Your squares should all be 2 3/4 inches. Your half square triangles are 2 3/4 inches. So they're not the smallest pieces, they're not the biggest pieces, but they should all be exact. It's very, very satisfying. Okay. It's going to take a little bit of time. So if anyone has any friendly faces jokes or silly things you would like to say or weekend plans you want to share, please feel free. I'm just going to be over here sewing.
I have another question for you.
Kyle, the boss, has another question.
When you're sewing at home, do you also talk your way through everything out loud?
She asked if when I was sewing at home if I talked my way through everything, and my answer is sometimes. I don't know about you, but sometimes I talk through my sewing, especially if I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Sometimes we just sew in silence, me, myself, and I. But, but sometimes I do stop and ask myself, what the heck is happening here? Often when I read the directions wrong or don't read the directions and get myself into a world of confusion, then we have the discussions. I feel like I'm not alone in that, though. I think many people have the internal out loud dialogues. Yeah. Okay, this is going to take me a little bit of time. Kyle the boss has another question. Let's see what this one is.
What is your current show or movie series or whatever that you're watching as you sew?
Kyle wants to know what I'm watching on television as I sew, and at the moment I am watching The Brady Bunch for the very first time. I have never watched The Brady Bunch before, and I'm learning all kinds of interesting things about my husband who grew up watching The Brady Bunch. So what I've learned so far is that there's this episode where Greg Brady wants to direct a film for history class, and that was my husband's ambition. Like, he saw that episode as a kid and was like, that's it, I should direct movies. And when I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense now. I've seen your home videos, and yes. They are very similar to the episodes that Greg directs with his family. And yeah, so the moral of that story is, if you find out that a loved one enjoys Brady Bunch that much, ask to see their home videos. It's like totally the same thing. Okay, I'm just continuing on this. You could do this all day. I should have maybe spared you me sitting here sewing 1/4 inch seam allowances over and over and over and over and over again. But this is fun, right? We're having a good time. What'd you say?
Should we go make a snack?
Oh, a snack. Now I am thinking about what I want as a snack for this afternoon. There are so many snack options on this fabric that really you would get hungry just looking at it for too long. But I learned to make cookies earlier this week, and I also learned about how if you freeze cookie dough, they bake into delicious cookies later. Now, remember, literally 3 minutes ago, where I was like, I'm pressing as I go. I decided that was taking too long, so I didn't. Now I'm going to press all my seams going this way, now that I have my strip finished, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. You can give it a spray with some flatter. Just, okay. Piecing this as I go, because that's fun. Okay.
What project or projects are you working on?
Oh my gosh. Okay, someone asked what projects I'm working on, and I feel like every other quilter is going to be with me on this. This is the year where like everyone is having babies. My sister-in-law is having a baby. My sister is having a baby. My brother is having a baby. My friend is having a baby. My other friend is having a baby. I didn't make any of those up. They're all real. That's 5 babies. 5 that need quilts. And so I have multiple quilts in progress. And then in like 2 weeks, one of my good friends is getting married. And I was like, of course I'm going to make you a quilt. So I have that going on. I have so many deadlines. I feel like the quilt deadlines are coming out of my ears. So it's kind of nice to just work on Sew Friday and be like, oh, I'm working on Sew Friday. So my plans for the weekend are finish the quilt for the baby that is due in like 3 days. Yeah. What day is it? Is it the 9th? That baby is due on the 11th. Oh, 7th, 8th, 9th, 3 days. I have 3 days until the baby is due. The baby lives in England. It'll be really great. I'm definitely going to make it on time. Just, nope, it's not going to happen. But that quilt is basted and quilted, so I'm in the middle of quilting it, and I just need to like power through and just sit down and get it done. But one of my girlfriends also sent me a text and said, hey, Halloween started at Disneyland. Do you want to go to Disneyland this weekend? And I was like, yes, I do. I want to go to Disneyland this weekend. So, probably going to go to Disneyland. And then that'll be fine. Okay, we're at the point where instead of working through strips, now we're at this section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to piece the little 2x3 sections on the either sides and then piece it to that middle part. Totally followed that, right? I'm just working down my design wall. Kyle was raising her hand because she had a question. Oh, my needle came unthreaded.
It's about Halloween at Disneyland. Do you wear anything special when you go during Halloween season?
Kyle asked if when you go to Disneyland at Halloween, do you wear anything special? And the answer is no, you don't, because Disneyland will not let adults in if they are wearing costumes. But if you really want to wear a costume to go to Disneyland, you can buy tickets to Mickey's Halloween party. This is not sponsored. I just really like Disneyland. You can buy a ticket to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party. You get a ton of candy. The park closes early to other people, so you can ride a bunch of rides, and grown-ups can wear costumes. I haven't done that in a few years, though, because I already paid for an annual pass, and I feel like it's expensive to also pay for a Halloween party ticket just for one night. And I don't really do Halloween, so yeah. My Halloween plans this year, though, I don't know about the rest of you, but I have really big plans to be flying to Quilt Market. It's just be on a plane. Yes, it's the spookiest plans of all. It'll be really fun. We're excited. And that's Yael's birthday, like the day before, I think, is Yael's birthday. And I don't know if you follow along on my Instagram, but Yael's my friend, and we hang out sometimes. And when she has a birthday, she needs lots of presents. And when she has a birthday, like right around market, which is always, you have to do something extra special, because then you're out of town, so you don't even get to like hang out and do whatever you want for your birthday. So last year at Market, and Market is an industry trade show for anyone out there wondering. Last year at Market, we had like 6 dozen mini bundt cakes delivered to the booth with a beautiful selection of black balloons, because Yael gets a little cranky about her birthday, even though she's very young. She doesn't have anything to worry about. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. We ate cake all day. We shared with our booth neighbors. Everyone wanted to know where this cake was coming from. It was a good day at Market. A bit longer. Yael is over here. Yael is not a quilter, so she doesn't really know that when you see this and you're like, wow, that's a lot of 1/4-inch seams, maybe I should do that. That's going to take you kind of a little bit of time, but it's totally worth it, because it's worth it. So she just said, how much longer is this? And you're like, well, I'm about halfway. So it's going to take me about half much longer. Kyle has another question. Kyle is knocking it out of the park with these questions.
Can you believe that people were annoyed at all the questions I asked as a kid? I asked a lot of questions. Okay. Your birthday's coming up before Yael's birthday.
Oh. That was more, Kyle made a statement. Her statement was that my birthday is coming up before Yael's birthday, and that is a real thing that is happening.
What are you doing for
for my birthday, am going to New York because my friend is getting married the day before my birthday. So I'm going to a wedding. But I was just so excited when my husband has never been to New York, and I've only been one time for a day when I was scouting out colleges and decided that I did not want to go to NYU because I needed like a campus. But I was like, oh my gosh, Rich, we're going to New York. We can go in the Statue of Liberty. And I grew up watching Jungle to Jungle, and I don't know if you've ever seen Jungle to Jungle. If you haven't, you're kind of missing out. But Jungle to Jungle is this Tim Allen movie, and he finds out that he has a kid, and he brings the kid to New York City, and the kid like wants to go get the fire from the Statue of Liberty. And so I said, oh my gosh, we should go to the Statue of Liberty, because growing up I always wanted to go. And I was like, I don't want to just go to the Statue of Liberty and like walk around on the ground. I want to go into the hat. And so we are going to go to the Statue of Liberty, but not on my birthday, and maybe a few days after my birthday, because we had to get the hat tickets. And we got the hat tickets, and I'm very excited about it. I think they're actually called crown tickets, which makes it a little bit better than hat tickets. But I'm also planning to go on a shopping excursion. I need to find a foam hat that looks like the Statue of Liberty crown. That's on my must-buy list. It's possible that if I find said foam hat, you can see it in a future episode of It's So Friday. Just saying. It's that is a thing that will likely happen. Any other questions? Oh, look, this is what happens when your boss distracts you. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. This is where our seam ripper comes out.
Your organizational skills.
Apparently someone just said I was organized. Yes, so
Okay,
let's see.
suggested that your needle keeps coming unthreaded.
It does.
You are moving so fast that your thread cutter is still working while you're pulling your fabric out.
That sounds right. So someone commented that my thread probably keeps breaking because I am pulling my project out before the thread cutter has a chance to finish the job. And I would say that's accurate. I get kind of annoyed waiting. I'm not the most patient person. So thankfully on this machine, it's really quick to rethread it. And so it's almost like more fun to get to use the needle threader. It's like my favorite feature about this machine. Like I said, it took me like 3 hours to figure out how to use it, but then once I figured out how to use it, it was like fun times were had by all. Just unthreading and rethreading the machine. I did such a good job sewing the seam. The last time I took one of these seams out, I tore the fabric. That's not what you want, so take your time when you have to seam rip. Okay, that works. So let's put it back and see what needs to be done. Oh boy, so I just sewed the wrong seams. Nope, that goes this way. I don't know what I did. I did something. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Let's re-sew that seam. Okay, Kyle, do you have more questions?
I bet I do.
I think,
What do you want for Christmas this year?
what do I want for Christmas this year? That's thinking so far ahead. I haven't even finished thinking about what I want for my birthday. What I want for my birthday the most, we'll go for my birthday first. What I want most for my birthday is I want to see Taylor Swift. That would be really fun. And then what I want for Christmas, I don't know. I feel like I always want more fabric. That tends to be a thing I think that quilters universally relate to, right? We all could use a little more fabric. I don't know.
That advice about you going so fast came from Amy.
Yes, I figured it was Amy. I knew it was you, Amy. As soon as that came through, I was like, that's Amy, and she's telling me because I'm doing it wrong. I knew. It's okay.
How close are we now?
Almost 2/3 of the way, not quite 2/3 of the way. We're getting there. This quilt is a slowly but surely quilt. It is totally worth the time, but just know that you're getting yourself into a project. So you could work on it block by block and kind of leave it for a little while. Or you could just spend all day working on it, That's a thing you could do. One of these days, my like ambition while I work here is to convince Yael that she should quilt. I've kind of got her sewing some garments, kind of. She doesn't think I'm a very good teacher, but she'd be wrong. That's just an inside joke here, because Yael is a very confident sewer as long as she's using the slowest setting on the sewing machine. If it has the little turtle machine, if you can bump it just a little bit further to like the very slow turtle, and then and then she's like super confident, but I'm like over here like, let's sew it really fast, and if it breaks, we'll fix it. Oh, hi Amy, my thread came undone again. Okay, but seriously, look at this needle threader. Wouldn't you want to just use that all the time? That was so fun. We're back. Okay. Okay. Now, when you're sewing these together, you kind of want to match your seams, and you could pin, but you don't have to, but you could. I'm going to put a pin in just because I feel like otherwise you just never know what could happen. I'm going to pin it. Just a single pin though, not like a pin parade, not like last week where it was like every week is a pin, every day there's so many pins. I don't know. We're just sewing now.
I have another question.
I was just letting my thread cutter do its thing entirely. Okay. Kyle has another question. Go for it, Kyle.
What was your favorite thing we sold at the employee yard sale this week?
Kyle asked me what was my favorite thing that we sold at the employee yard sale this week, because we had an employee-only yard sale, and in this yard sale we sold off just a lot of old quilt market props, so furniture and quilts and lights and shelves and just all kinds of things. It was a lot of fun. And my favorite thing that we sold that I didn't buy was this beautiful table that we had custom made. It had a Singer sewing machine treadle base, and then it had just this beautiful 5-foot long wood slab as the tabletop, and it was so pretty, but I do not have room for another table, and I could not fit that thing in my car, so I did not take it home, but my friend did. But I bought myself 2 quilts, and that was very exciting. I like buying quilts because I think there's something grand about having a quilt that you didn't have to make. Yeah. Okay. We're getting there, guys. I promise. Okay.
Do you have a favorite shade of Kona?
Kyle just asked me if I have a favorite shade of Kona. I don't sew with a lot of Kona. I don't sew with a lot of Kona because I prefer to sew with fussy cut motifs, and then every time I try and make a solids quilt, like every single time, I always manage to add in prints that are tone on tone. So I guess I haven't really put a lot of thought into what my favorite Kona shade is because I like them all, and I tend to need them when I'm wanting to like add in a solid background to a fussy cut, but I don't know what my favorite is. It's a good question. However, Kona has just a really nice beefy hand, and so I feel like it makes sense why everyone loves it so much. And yes, I did say beefy hand, and that's because Kona actually has more fibers woven in, so it's a heavier weight solid, and so it does what you want it to do a little bit more easily than other solids on the market. And we have 340 colors. I was like 303, but that was so many years ago. I know there's more since then. We have 340 Konas, and so there's always the right color to find in your projects. Okay, now we're just sewing. We're getting there. It's so fun. This is like real life sewing, huh? Everyone else knows, right? Basically do this at home a lot, and everyone goes, really? Why did that take so long? And you're like, because I individually squared up, like 62 times 4 half square triangles. Not gonna math that out. But it's okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? More questions?
I have another. What was your favorite subject in school?
Oh, okay. Kyle just asked me what my favorite subject was in school, so I'm going to tell you about a funny story from when I was in high school. I really liked AP US History. Really loved it. I just thought it was really fun. I've recently read this book about how history books are horribly inaccurate. However, I really enjoyed AP US History. And my teacher was like pretty fine. He was okay. But one day, he did something, I don't even know what he did, but boy, it made me mad. And I was like a very good student. Like, I didn't know that people skip school. I didn't know that that was like a thing that was okay. My dad was the principal of like my private religious school that I attended, and everyone had known me since I was like a little baby. And so I just didn't get in trouble, because like you can't get in trouble when you're in that kind of environment. Okay, so AP US History comes around. The teacher did something, and I was really steamed, and I drew this picture on a 3x5 card of a stick figure who looked kind of like me, like a little bit, hitting another stick figure that looked kind of like him with a stick. And he happened to come by, of course, and he sees this stick figure, like hitting this other stick figure, and he was like, you have anger issues. I'm sending you to the principal's office. And so my dad was the principal, so he actually sent me to the vice principal, who's in charge of discipline. And I've known this vice principal since I was just very small. And so the teacher, sends me in with a note, and he sends me in with a picture, and he's like, her anger issues. And Vice Principal Don Thomas took one look at the drawing and one look at my slip to the office and started laughing and sent me back to class and didn't tell my dad, so I didn't get in trouble. Oh, it still makes me laugh, though. I told my dad about it like a couple years later, and he was like, what? You got sent to the principal's office? What? It's funny. We can laugh about it now because I didn't get in trouble. We are almost done.
I have another question.
Okay. Kyle has another question.
What's your favorite Lifetime movie?
Oh, that's a hard one. Kyle asked what my favorite Lifetime movie is, and I am not sure, but I really enjoy the holidays when they start bringing out like the worst romance movies you've ever seen in your entire life. I just really enjoy watching those while I sew. And not too long ago, Meghan Markle got married to the prince, and Meghan Markle, before she was like Princess Queen Lady, she started in Lifetime movies. And so when I was at the grocery store, I found a 3-pack of the Meghan Markle Royal Collection of all these Lifetime movies that she was in, and they were just terrible. And like 2 out of the 3, she marries a prince. So it's like visualizing your destiny for her, and then she ends up marrying the prince in real life. So those are kind of my favorites because they're ridiculous. And what are the odds that this girl's going to go and marry actual royalty? But she did it. So Lifetime movies, check them out. There's some good ones. I actually have a few conversations during the holidays with my sister-in-law and a couple other friends who also enjoy the terrible Hallmark/Lifetime movies, and we all tell each other which ones are the good ones, like which ones are worth watching versus which ones are just whatever. So if you're ever curious, you just let me know around the holidays, and I'll tell you which ones are the ones worth watching.
I have a follow-up question about Halloween. You said you're not really into Halloween, but you dress up your dog.
Okay, Kyle's follow-up question was about Halloween. She said, you're not really into Halloween, but you dress up your dog. So which is my favorite dog costume? And I will have to say that, so I had a dog named Wallace, and Wallace loved costumes. So it was really fun to dress him up because he just like delighted in it. He would see the costumes and he would like come running across the room to put on a costume. And his favorite costume and my favorite costume of him was a pumpkin. He was so cute. Now my dog Lucy, my current puppy, does not like costumes. It kind of agitates her. She'll like tolerate it for a photo and then she's like, get this off of me. And yeah, you feel bad. So for her, my favorite costume was the year that she was a ghost. We just draped her in a sheet. And it was just very funny. I laughed. She was okay with it. She got a lot of treats afterwards. Yeah, that was my favorite dog costume. But this year for Halloween, I'm like kind of considering. I have this this like really old Simplicity Daisy Duck costume that just looks just comical. And I'm thinking I might try and sew it. We'll see. I don't know where I'd wear it, because like I said, Quilt Market. I'm going to dress as Daisy Duck to Quilt Market. If I'm going to dress as any character at Quilt Market, it's going to be Minnie Mouse, because then it's just like a red dress. It's pretty normal. Daisy is like, it's all bow. All right, Kyle, do you have any other questions? Kyle's getting there. Third questions. She's asking now if my doggie still wears the backpack that I bought her, and she doesn't. You know, I thought it would be great because it's a doggy-sized backpack. It loops into a harness so she can, you know, wear it on her walks. I figured, you know, she could bring her favorite toys and a treat or two when we go places, but she doesn't like to go places. She likes to sleep. She is like 10 years old, so I guess she should be allowed to just sleep if she wants to sleep. But I feel like we should send her back to school and make her wear her backpack, and it would be precious. But I got one video of that. I made a home movie, and that was all I had. My husband, when I was making this home movie, looked at me and was like, "Are you serious right now?" I was like, "Yes. I'm making a movie of Lucy wearing her backpack and going back to school." And I was so proud of it. It was an amazing cinematic masterpiece, if I do say so myself. It turned out pretty good. Okay, we have now finished piecing this. It took a little while, but we're getting there. But we still need to attach this long strip of fabric to the side. And if you're doing it like totally according to directions, you'd also attach the long one to the top, which I didn't cut out. So I'm not going to do it live on air. But you could do it at home, and it would do the same thing. So final seam here. Okay. Kyle, want more questions?
So you learned to make chocolate chip cookies. Do you have another recipe?
Kyle was noting that I learned to make chocolate chip cookies and wants to know if I have another recipe to tackle. But I kind of think the next thing I really need to learn how to make is like macaroni and cheese from the box, because I always mess that up. I can do a lot of things well, but cooking is not one of them. So, okay. We have finished this piece. Yay! Okay. Now, remember that piece I showed you earlier that was yellow and looked a lot like this, because it was this piece? You are going to line these up, and I'm just going to hold this up on the design wall so you can see. And you're going to sew the seam. So you'll note that the spare space is over here on this one and over here on this one. And what that's going to do is give you that offset shape so that you get the circle at the end. So when you go ahead and piece this, you want this seam to match here and this seam to match over here, and then these will all nest nicely. So that's the next thing we're going to do. We're just going to take the yellow piece, put it right sides together, and because you do want the precision, we're just going to add some pins at the joins. Next week, we have an exciting episode of It's Sew Friday. And not only is it an exciting episode, but we are going to have a guest star. So it's going to be super exciting. I am actually going to be getting off of a plane and then, like, you know in the movies where they're like, I can't be late, I have a date, I am going to jump on the freeway and fly or whatever. That's basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to get off a plane, run to my car, drive up to work, and then be here for It's So Friday. It's going to be so exciting. But we're also going to have guest star Julia Williams of Alchemy Tea / Robert Kaufman, and she is going to help, and we are going to be working on something fun together. So tune in next week also. Maybe should have said that at the end, but I'm really excited about it because I think it's fun to sew with friends. And yeah, she's super excited to be doing it too. You just wait. She's barely contain her excitement. Okay, now as you sew, like I've said before, make sure you remove the pins as you go because you don't want to sew over a pin. Boop, boop, boop. Do, do, do. Okay. Amy, I'm letting that thing cut all the way through just for you. All right, and so now, well, before I do gram reveal, let's give it a little press because it looks so good, but it's always looking better with a little press. Okay. So when I go to press, I'm just gently kind of nudging the seams all the same direction. I'm going to give it a little bit of flatter and then give it a good press with my iron. And then I'm going to show you all because look how wonderful that looks. So let's do this. Well, let's do this. And just like that, you have part of your Friendly Faces quilt. So it does take a little bit of time to work on each section, so just take your time, work on it section by section, and the great part is the way the pattern is written, you could work on one color section and then walk away and come back and do it again another time. You'll have the exact same precision, and before you know it, you'll have this beautiful friend quilt. You could take it places. You could use it like a photo op, like you could put your head like right in the middle. You know, just for fun. I don't know. There are a lot of things. You can just cuddle with it because it's very fun. But this has been your It's So Friday with Friendly Faces. Oh, but before I forget, John really wanted me to tell you. John is our studio archivist, and he takes all the beautiful photos you see of our quilts and on our website. And he came and looked at this and wanted to talk about how it's important to pick your motifs well because you see everyone is happy here except for the sad toast, and he let me know that that toast is not sad because he was burned. He was sad because he didn't get to see any of his friends, and they could all see their friends, but he didn't. And he let me know that I should have placed him down here so that he could see his friends, and then he would have been happy. So when you're picking your motifs, make sure you consider how happy they'll all be and where they're looking, because people like John will notice. All right. Thank you for joining us for It's So Friday. I've had so much fun working on Friendly Faces with you. Make sure that you, if you decide to make this quilt or any of our other It's So Friday projects, go ahead and share with hashtag It's So Friday Finish. And remember that you can get the fabrics for the kit or just the Friendly Faces fabric up at the retailers in our profile. We'll see you next week, and we'll be here with Julia. So tune in next time. All right. Bye.